Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Djuma and Arathusa. Myself and Brian are out this afternoon, and it's a beautiful day. It was quite cloudy this morning, but all of those clouds have cleared off, or the majority of them. So it's nice and sunny, and quite interestingly, when Mark came to rescue myself and Brian this morning, because Jigga had broken down at the African Harrier Hawk nest, on our way back while Mark was towing us, we found a leopard. Well, actually Brian spotted the leopard, and it was probably the same individual that was seen by some of the viewers this morning with Mark. Mark managed to find it, but sadly it was in such thick vegetation they couldn't keep up with it. But it was probably the same leopard, and it had actually killed something. We're not sure what. We could hear the animal bleating. It was still alive, so it obviously just made the kill. Possibly a rabbit or a duiker. So myself and Brian headed into that same area where it disappeared this morning with the kill, the second time it disappeared. But we just couldn't find a way, and it was so thick. It's an area along a riverbed with a lot of thick trees, so sadly we couldn't get in there. But we'll keep that in mind for later on this evening. Possibly he'll head out. We're guessing it was quite a small kill by the sound of that bleating that we heard, either a duiker or possibly a rabbit. Those are two animals that make a similar distress call when they have been caught. So we've started off with that, and were not successful in getting to where we saw him moving with the kill. So now we're heading on towards Treehouse Dam, and we shall see what is out there. For any of the new viewers, welcome on board. And just to let you know, it is an interactive safari, so you can ask us questions on Twitter at #SafariLive, and also on email, questions@WildEarthTV. So please keep the questions coming through. We really do appreciate your questions, and do try and answer as many of them as possible. As many of them as possible. And this is Brian's last drive before he goes on leave, so let's hope that we get to give Brian a good send-off before he goes home for a few days. It really was interesting this morning when we drove past the leopard that Brian managed to spot. Just before we drove past that area, we heard whichever animal that had caught, be it a duiker or a rabbit, we heard it let off this distress call, but we weren't entirely sure what it was. And I saw Mark, he was obviously in the vehicle in front towing us. He turned his head and looked into the bush. I looked into the bush, and I thought it was a bird initially because it let off a very short bleat. But then as we went past and Brian spotted the leopard, we then pieced the puzzle together that it actually made a kill, and at that moment the leopard picked up the kill and walked off into the thick undergrowth. We couldn't see exactly what it had caught, but it was an exciting moment nonetheless. We unhitched the vehicle that was being towed in order to turn Mark's vehicle around to be able to go and look for it. There was a... Have you got a gap there, Brian? There was a woodlands kingfisher that took up, and I thought it was going to land perfectly for us to show you guys. But at the last moment it changed its flight path. There we go, this might work for us. If you zoom in, I'll talk you through it, but it's kind of just to the right of the center. Well done. Such beautiful birds, these folks. So, certainly worth trying to show you that spectacular turquoise blue that they have on their back and their wing feathers. There we got a little bit there. And folks, as you can see, its beak is open and it is panting. That is how birds sweat, and it is a very hot and humid afternoon. So we are feeling no different to this bird. Oh, it looks like it may take off shortly, and when it does, it'll be a very short burst, folks. Oh, there we go, but we should be able to see that electric blue as it takes off. Jennifer in Rome has just asked a question as to how many different kingfisher species there are. Now, there's lots of different species in Africa as a continent and throughout the world, and on different continents you do get different kingfishers. And interestingly, their name can be misleading, Jennifer. They often don't hunt fish. You get quite a few species that are completely unreliant on water and or prey species that occur in water, as is this one here, the woodlands kingfisher. The woodlands kingfisher is an insect eater, despite its name. And in the Kruger National Park there's about 6 species, if I am correct. No, I'm wrong. There are 9 different species that you get in the Kruger National Park in this area that we're in now. So 9 species in our area of operation, but many more throughout Africa, different parts of Africa, and even abroad in different parts of, or different continents other than Africa. So good question, Jennifer. There, let me actually show you some of the individuals that we can find here in South Africa. They vary greatly in size, or their shapes are all pretty similar, but in terms of colors they're all quite different. This gives you a bit of an idea with the woodlands down here at the bottom. Sadly, this illustration doesn't do it justice, I don't believe. But some other really beautiful kingfishers on this page, and these are the smaller ones basically, and well, not all of them smaller, but these are slightly larger ones, with the biggest being the giant kingfisher. It's ones basically, and well, not all of them smaller, but these are slightly larger ones, with the biggest being the giant kingfisher. It's considerably larger than the rest of them. And funnily enough, out of all of these kingfishers, the top 2 here on this page are insect eaters, the bottom 2 are fish eaters. So we've got a 50% fish to insect eating ratio there. And on this page here we have the woodlands, which is insect, the African pygmy, which is insect, so now it's 4-2, grey-headed, which is fish eating, 4-3, 4-all, malachite, and half-coloured is also a aquatic feeder. So it's 5-4 between the fish eaters and the insect eaters, a tight battle between the 2 there. Sorry, I was just turning down the radio there. The game drives are all getting out and mobile now, so all of them give updates, and as each station becomes mobile they let the other vehicles know, and then they just get an update as to which roads people have taken, where people are heading, and that allows them to not necessarily double track or to get too many people into one area, and we can get to spread out and fine comb this area, which is critical to be able to find animals. It's so big and dense that if we didn't work together and make these plans, life would be very difficult for us. So Jennifer, that answers your question, I hope, and thank you for it. Well, welcome on board. Good weather to find leopards up trees, folks. And for those of you that have been following a little bit more closely, you would have realized that I still have not seen a leopard up a tree since I've been here, or spotted one. And it's something that I do need to get done sooner rather than later. So who knows, maybe this afternoon we will get spoiled with finding a leopard up a tree. The reason why I say it is a good afternoon to find a leopard up a tree is because of the heat. Now, being there's a bit more of a breeze. Obviously the shade from the canopy of the tree also helps them keep cool, so it's just a nice cool place for them to relax. Lower down you become, the less breeze and the more of a blanketing effect that the grass would have on you, as you could imagine, lying down on the grass, which is fairly lush, and it will continue to grow over the next few months. Lots of tracks on the road, a lot of bird tracks, what look to be some dwarf mongoose, impala. What else has been moseying down this little road? Some inyala. The tortoise back there. Not the best time to be reading the newspaper, which is our road network, critical in providing us with information as to what animals have been moving in the area that you're driving through. But typically it is better to check them in the morning, especially for predators, which would have been more likely to be active at night, and also tracks are easier to analyze earlier in the morning. Less vehicles would have driven on these roads, and the weather would have had less of an impact on how the track is looking. So, there was a steenbok, but he ran off, sadly. Brian, what do you think of all these clouds building up in the south?
They worry me.
Okay. So folks, as you can hear, Brian is concerned about the clouds building up to the south of us. But I don't think we need to stress yet. We may have trouble getting home, but it shouldn't affect the safari, I don't think. But it may catch us on our way home this evening. That's typically where the bad weather comes from, the south and east, which is where you're looking now. I shouldn't say bad weather, it's just rainy. It's good weather, good for the plants, bad for us. So it's relative, I guess, as to what you're trying to do out here. If you're a plant trying to go, the good weather is on the way. If you're Brian or myself trying to take you guys on a live safari, it can be troublesome. there are quite a few game drives, which is good. There's more people, animals just like us, and we all together in the search. Typically it becomes more productive for us. It is a very busy time at these lodges. Oh, we've got an opportunity here to watch this bachelor herd of impalas bathed in beautiful afternoon sunlight, and they appear to be moving towards us. Potentially might cross this road in front of us. We're just below Twin Dams here, so I'm not sure if they've come down from a drink. There is a lot of other water lying around in this area in little mud wallows. The antelope really are in great shape. They can tend to look a little bit thin towards the end of winter, but in the last few months since we've started getting rainfall, their condition improves very quickly, and they are looking exceptionally good at this time of the year. So all different ages here. There's some young ones there that you can see in the middle of the shot. That one would have been a 2013 model in all likelihood, born at the end of last year. Up to all the more mature males that could be 4, 5, 6, 7 years, potentially even older than that, some of the older ones. So mixed ages, but all the same gender, and that is common at this time of the year. The males have no need to be around the women, as the women are concentrating on raising their young. So now the males can bond with the other males and work on their condition for the rutting season, which will be their next main event in the calendar, which is still a few months away. Possibly May, June, they'll start to rut and compete with one another for territories and females. I always wonder in situations like this, everything seems so calm and peaceful, which it is, but this is exactly what it would be like before something pounces out of one of the surrounding bushes and startles the impala and manages to potentially bring one down. It's only happened to me a handful of times on safari where you've been watching a situation like this, just enjoying the tranquility, and next thing you know, all hell breaks loose and there's a leopard or a lion or wild dog hot on the heels of whatever you have been observing. Good. We've only got 2 visitors at Twin Dams this afternoon. Or large visitors rather. There will be lots more that we possibly can't see now, but these 2 Egyptian geese are often at this dam, and I wonder when or if they will manage to raise a clutch of goslings. There is another pair at WildEarthTV Dam that we've been monitoring, and they've already managed to start raising their brood. There were 7 chicks, Brian. Are there still 7? Have you seen them recently?
I think there's still 7.
Okay, well there were 7 little goslings that we've been keeping an eye on at WildEarthTV Dam, but they appear to be the only goslings around, despite the fact that there are quite a few pairs of Egyptian geese at the different waterholes we frequent. Okay, so now what I think we could do as an initial plan is to head up towards Buffelshoek Dam. As far as I'm aware, there weren't too many vehicles working in that area of the reserve this morning, so we may be surprised with something that nobody knows about. But as some of you may know, or some of you will learn to know, anything could happen between now and there. So often plans do change out here. Pretty bird here that we don't get to show you very often. This is called a Natal Franklin or Natal spurfowl, and that is exactly the reason why we don't get to show you them very often, because they are small and tend to run off into the undergrowth. But Brian has done a good job there. They may cross the road in front of us here, so we'll just wait a minute or two. Here we go, they are coming onto the road there. Oh, wonderful. Orange legs, orange beak. Very pretty little birds. And as you can see, similar to chickens, they spend the majority of their time on the ground feeding, and they use their feet to scratch around and look for little bugs and insects to feed on, but they are on the ground predominantly. See if we can freewheel after them here, stalking the spurfowl. Let's see if it doesn't give one little scratch for us to show us how they feed. Not uncommon to see them digging through piles of elephant dung for little morsels. Them and the helmeted guinea fowl. as I'm sure you guys can hear, the birds are really giving us a great show this afternoon in terms of the calls we can hear. Beautiful sounds. This Franklin appears to have relaxed with us a little bit, so we may as well enjoy this moment. Come on. Well, that's no surprise that, as I said, it's... Oh, here it comes. It must be nerve-wracking being an animal that small, walking through the undergrowth, not knowing what may be watching you from above or stalking you on the ground. Okay. Good afternoon, Diane. Diane's just asked whether franklins do nest on the ground, and indeed they do. I actually haven't seen a franklin's nest before, but I'm sure it'll be... I know it is on the ground, and probably a fairly unorganized nest, or even potentially a scrape just in the ground, and what I'm guessing is that they'll lay very cryptically camouflaged eggs that can literally just on the sand or a small bed of leaves and completely disappear from everyone's view with their camouflage. So they do have very basic nesting, and it is on the ground. Which can be quite important, I guess, but like the franklin chicks, when they hatch, they are self-sufficient in terms of feeding, just like a day-old chicken. As long as it's provided food, it will feed itself. So it doesn't technically need its mother to raise a feeding view, simply from a safety point of view. Now, this form of being born, they feed themselves, but if they were up in a net, in order to feed. So, and that does happen, I know, with some ducks. They nest in the fork of trees, and ducks are just like chickens or franklin, those type of birds that can also feed. And these tiny little ducklings can't fly, but just fling themselves out of these nests, and somehow, I'm sure they are one of the continue if not happened. You need to get through bed. in order to get towards Buffelshoek Dam, so it should clear up shortly as I get up onto higher ground. A beautiful cool this afternoon, which is making life very pleasant for myself and I guess for everyone out here. All animals enjoy it when it's slightly cooler, I think it's fair to say. Now the road we're driving down is called Mamba Road, and wouldn't it be nice to know exactly why they've named this road Mamba Road? It's in all likelihood because of the fact that a black mamba, which is the kind of mamba you get here, you get two different species in South Africa, the black mamba and the green mamba. The black occurs here, and it's a highly venomous snake. They can be large snakes as well, but wouldn't it be nice to know the encounter that was had here? Now, I'm not going to carry on with the snake. We are going to talk about this visitor. Now, this you could essentially call a summer tourist, folks. It has come all the way from Europe to enjoy this South African summer, and this is the third one I've seen since they've started to arrive. The first one I saw was the day Mark arrived, which was I think around the 6th of December. And Mark also saw his first European roller or Eurasian roller on the same day as myself. So they've come a very long way, folks, to enjoy the weather, and I don't blame them. Not only the weather, the feeding opportunity here, there's a lot of insects around, and that's what the European roller feeds on. So, for those of you that know a little bit more about birding, there's an exceptionally beautiful bird called the lilac-breasted roller, and the lilac-breasted roller and the Eurasian roller are cousins. Now, what I'm going to do is get the book out for you and get that ready to show you the comparison between the two. In my opinion, the lilac-breasted roller is far prettier than the European, but that doesn't mean that the European is not a pretty individual itself. Very similar looking. Now that this bird is looking at us, notice that it doesn't have any lilac or purple below the beak around the throat area, whereas the lilac-breasted roller does have that lilac purple breast throat patch. So that's the main characteristic feature distinguishing between the European and the lilac-breasted. And on top of that, the lilac-breasted does tend to have a slightly more electric turquoise blue, whereas this European is quite dull, but it does depend on the individual. And I'm sure the European roller's plumage does improve when it is in Europe and the Middle East and Asia, when they do breed over there. So they're not down here to breed as some migratory birds are. They're simply down here for the weather and the food. Wouldn't that be nice, folks? Just permanently following summer, year in and year out. Summer and food. It probably won't be too long until it flies down and catches something. It is scanning its head from side to side, looking for any potential snacks. So we'll give it a few moments. given Brian a challenge if it does decide to take off. They swoop down so quickly once they have seen any potential prey moving through the undergrowth, and it could do it in almost any direction from where it's sitting now. Obviously it'll be more likely to go towards the direction it's facing. But having eyes on the side of its head allows it to scan a larger area than 180 degrees, like we can. It really is hard to believe that such a small bird can travel so many thousands of miles. They must have some interesting stories from along the way. As I was saying, folks, before this European roller fluttered into the shot, was that this road is called Mamba Road, so it would be interesting to know why exactly, or what exact encounter was had many years ago to create this road to be called Mamba Road. One could have simply just been seen here, or something interesting may have happened. I'll have to do some research and ask the guides if they know of any potential reason. Now, Mamba Road, another thing about this road is that, for me personally, since I've been here, it's been one of those roads that hasn't been too productive in terms of game. It's very thick, so even if you do find something on this road, you may lose it. But that doesn't mean it's not a good road to come and explore. And I try to not bracket roads just on a short experience of the fact that it may be difficult to follow animals. And the nice thing about driving these roads that do get bracketed as the less productive roads is that because less people are driving them, you actually don't really know what could be going on them. So that's a little bit of my insight into Mamba Road. Oh, we've got an opportunity to show you. I think it's a lilac-breasted, but it could be another European. Oh no, hold on. It's another European roller, so we will show it to you though. We've got quite a unique angle here. Interesting to see how it's having to compensate for the wind being higher up in this tree relative to how the one was perched earlier lower down. It could be the same individual just flying alongside us. And I'm guessing it would be because we haven't seen too many in this area yet, so I'm sure they will continue to come over the next few weeks. It'll be very interesting to know when the first one arrives in this area relative to the last one, because obviously they are traveling such a huge distance that there are many variables that could delay certain birds. And interesting, some Rhetz's helmet shrikes just flew out of this tree. And I couldn't see them before, so I'm wondering if they took off out of a nest. We'll have to have a closer look on the other side of the tree as we drive past. I really like finding birds' nests. They are such great things to monitor out here. Haven't been too lucky with the finding of birds' nests thus far, but that's not to say that we couldn't find 2 or 3 in one afternoon. Okay, so they do not nest in cavities of trees as I thought they might, but they nest in a small cup-shaped nest, apparently quite high up in tree branches, so this would not be a good tree to nest in because there's no foliage or cover for them. Beautiful shot there, Brian. Oh! I was busy watching Brian's great camera work on the monitor and just drove into a massive hole on the side of the road. Thankfully, just got the end of it, but there's a large hole here. I'm not sure who would have made it, potentially an aardvark or a porcupine. Okay. The wind really is picking up, and that can often be a sign that there's bad news on the way for us, but news on the way for the vegetation. The clouds are looming, folks, and this wind is not a good sign. We are prepared as we can for a downpour, so we're not concerned for the well-being of the equipment, but it may just impact on our plans for you. Okay, it should start clearing up a lot now, folks. Sorry, VM, go again with that message. Okay, copy that. Sadly, we're not on we're on the opposite end of the reserve, so that won't work too well for us. But good idea. Yes. Well, folks, I'm sorry if you don't like birds, because we have been looking at a lot of them, but this one here that you're about to see is one of the best. So stand by. Right, have you got the little beads? Is there? Now that, folks, or those 2 little beads is, you cannot not enjoy the look of them. They are beautiful little birds, and the name slips my mind, but somebody did ask a question a few days or about a week ago whether we did have any bee eaters here, and this is one of them. It's the smallest one, hence its name, the little bee eater, but really beautiful. And this has been my first opportunity to share their beauty with you. There could be more around. They often do fly around in small flocks. It can be 4, 5 or 6 of them, but in this case it looks like just the 2. One of which we can just still see there. Incredibly good flyers, these bee eaters. They catch the majority of their prey on the wing, mid-air. So when you do find them hunting, it can be great entertainment watching them swooping from side to side to catch their little prey. So, the elusive little bee eater has finally been ticked off. Not that we're ticking off through a list here, folks, we're just enjoying whatever there is to enjoy. And whatever Mother Nature presents us with. Oh, we took it one step too far trying to give you a closer shot on the bee eater, but it has landed again, not quite close as we would like it to be. No, that's the end of the bee eater show. There will be more to show you. The European bee eater should be back soon from Europe, as well as the carmine bee eater, which is probably my favorite bee eater. It's a beautiful red color, reddy pink. They come through from Central Africa. Quite a nice vantage point here to show you the clouds that are building up in the sky, folks. And they really are beautiful. Not looking too bad, but only time will be able to tell what happens here. To give you an example, our camp where we stay is probably only about 15 miles from here as the crow flies. Yet at the middle of the day today they received rain there, quite heavy rain, and we didn't get a drop here, so these storms can pass by and miss you with relative ease. Well, Gwyn Lane, thank you very much for your positive feedback regarding the birds we've been looking at. I really do appreciate that, and always good to know that you're enjoying what we're showing you out here. It really is so important to try and give the smaller animals that are still equally beautiful, but often simply because of their size it's harder to notice their beauty, and unless you zoom in or get them with the right angle or right sunlight, it's hard to understand their beauty. And it is one of my favorite things about this kind of a safari, unlike a safari where you may be on this vehicle for 3 days or 4 days at Djuma or at Arathusa, where you kind of have a time limit within which to perform, and therefore you may rush things or overlook certain things in order to be able to show people bigger things. In this environment that we're in now, we've got drives, and you know, it'll be a few months worth of drives that we can simply just enjoy whatever is out there for us to enjoy. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of working for Wild Earth on these live safaris. It is certainly a different experience to your regular safari that I'm kind of used to. Typically you'll find people coming to stay in areas like this will spend 3 or 4 nights at a certain camp, and then potentially, depending on the itinerary and their preferences, go to 2 or 3 different camps during their trip to Africa or South Africa. So kind of resulting in a 2-week period with 3 different lodges, 3 or 4 different lodges. But what that does do, or what you can find yourself getting trapped in as a guide, is that you sorry folks, there's just a radio message coming through there. So it is a very unique angle that I've enjoyed getting used to, the fact that we do have an infinite safari. There's no time pressure on us, and we just go out and enjoy what we can. For example, the other afternoon when myself and Brian were lucky enough to bump into the quarantine mail just before we went live, and we spent 3 hours with that animal the whole drive, and typically, well, not one other vehicle did that, and about 5 or 6 different game viewers came in and left that site saying, no, stay for 10 to 20 minutes. But for me, the more you invest in any given animal, and the more chance you give to whatever is in front of you, rather than racing around searching for things, the unknown, the more enjoyable the experience becomes, and the more intimately you get to know animals or their behavior. Okay. Ah, the European bee-eater. It's going to be very hard, if not impossible, for Brian to show you, but these European rollers, I could hear them calling. They've got a very distinctive kind of a call. Not quite like what I've just done for you now, but similar enough. And funny that, we had just mentioned that they should be arriving after seeing the little bee-eater. And a few did just fly over, so that's good news that they're back. We've got a question that's just come through from Raisa in Finland, and she is asking what the most beautiful nest is that I've seen. The paradise flycatcher has got a beautiful nest. It's a tiny, tiny little cup, and that it often makes in a fork of a tree. And I guess what helps make the paradise flycatcher's nest beautiful is that it's an exceptionally beautiful bird, bright orange. The male's got a long, long orange tail streamer, and seeing this bright orange bird perched on these tiny little cup nests is certainly a beautiful sight. So paradise flycatcher is probably one of my favorite bird nests. Oh, sorry, I've just been asked what the most beautiful eggs are, not the actual nest. Eggs, let me think about eggs. There's a beautiful one. Right, so I can't think of any beautiful bird's eggs at the moment, so I've hit a blank there. But I certainly have seen some beautiful eggs over the years. A lot of the birds that do nest on the ground or in shallow scrapes, and there are many francolins, spurfowls, lapwings, plovers. Those birds' eggs are typically quite beautiful because of their cryptic camouflage. So when you do manage to find them in amongst the grass, they are a beautiful sight to behold. But sadly we don't get to see their eggs as often as we'd like. Either they're in the nests, which are difficult for us to get up and see, or hidden on the ground. If they are the ground nesting birds, they tend to hide their nests very well, so it can be difficult for us to find them. Good afternoon, Carol. Carol's just asked whether we get any parrots in this part of Africa, and we do. We get 3 different species in this greater area, but right where we are here, there's only one species that we see, and that's the brown-headed parrot. It's a small green parrot with a brown head, and we often hear them flying over, but they are fairly secretive. We don't see too much of them, but we will do our best to show you them when the opportunity arises. And then another 2 species that occur further north in the Kruger National Park, further north of where we are. One very similar to the brown-headed parrot called the mayor's parrots, and then one a lot further, quite a lot bigger, called the grey-headed parrots. Well, folks, thanks very much for all the questions coming through on the birds. Donald's just asked whether we get ostriches in the Kruger, and yes, we do. In the Sabi Sands, I've only seen one a handful of times. It's not the right habitat here. They prefer more open areas, which you do get in different parts of Kruger. But this here is a little bit thick for ostriches. But we do get them here. There's about 420 bird species that you can find in the Greater Kruger National Park, so that gives you an idea that there are quite a few different members of the bird family out here. And this is the best time of year to view all of them, because a lot of those 420 will be made up of migratory species which only come for a few months over the summer. Okie dokes. Colleen on Twitter is sticking with the bird theme of this afternoon's drive, and she's just asked whether we get any owls here. And yes, we do. We get a variety of owls ranging from tiny little individuals about that big, the pearl-spotted and barred owlets, as well as some much larger owls, the Verreaux's eagle owl, which is a massive owl that's big enough to catch vervet monkeys or small antelope like duiker. It's just a game viewer going past. It looks like they're having a very pleasant afternoon, so that's why I've stopped here, just to let them carry on ahead of us. That way, giving them a chance to find whatever it is that's going to be at Buffalo's Hook Dam. I've got a feeling, folks, and we're not far from there, so we'll just give them a few minutes to carry on. And what I'll do is I'll take this opportunity to show you a few of the different owls. Sadly, because we aren't mobile very late into the evenings, we don't really get opportunities to show you owls, but there are a few nocturnal species, as the owls typically are. Not doing a very good job here of finding the owl page. There we go. So, as we all know, there are a lot of, well, owls are predominantly nocturnal, whereas the pearl-spotted owlet, and it's just called owlet because it's a tiny owl, and the African barred owlets are more diurnal and spend a lot of time, therefore, hunting during the day, whereas, which is not always the case, whereas your bigger owls tend to only operate at night time. And as we go over the next page here, so those are the smaller owls. These are kind of the bigger owls we get in this area. The one at the top right being the biggest, the Verreaux's eagle owl. It's very big, although the Pell's fishing owl, this one individual here, which is a very rare owl, and it's a specialist fish hunter, would you believe it? I've only seen one of these once at a very specific place that you go to simply to see this bird. They are very rare, but beautiful birds. So yeah, a variety of different owls in this area of operation, all different shapes and sizes, all different calls, but sadly, as I said, we do battle to show them. Sometimes we will get lucky during the day. We'll find where they're sleeping, spot them in a tree and be able to show you. So we will get lucky at some stage. And for those of you that were with myself and Brian briefly this morning at the African Harrier Hawk nest, there were some birds that flew past called Retz's helmet shrikes, and they often respond and come in to investigate the call of a pearl-spotted owl. It's a very small owl, so I tried to mimic that call to the best of my ability, which wasn't very good. I wasn't in tune this morning, and due to my lack of tune, the Retz's helmet shrikes didn't pay any attention to us. Oh, I think I'm seeing things again. Yep. I'd seen what I thought to be the tail of a bird sticking out the back of the nest, but it was just a small lump of wood that deceived me. All this bird talk has got my brain fixated on birds. Good afternoon, go ahead. Copy, thank you. I'll just make my way past and try not to interfere there. Enjoy. Okay folks, well the game viewer that did head up to Buffelshoek Dam just ahead of us has decided to stop for a sundowner. As you do when on safari. So to enjoy a sauna over Buffelshoek Dam, we'll simply continue and leave them to stake up this area for us. They'll call us and let us know if anything exciting happens. But my permission to find a pride of lion, a wild dog and a leopard all drinking simultaneously from Buffelshoek Dam was obviously wrong, because that is not happening. I really would like to see Mvula again. Now, for those of you who don't know Mvula, he is the main dominant male leopard of this area of Djuma, and he's a beautiful, beautiful specimen. I think he's 7 years old now, there or thereabouts, and a really impressive animal to look at. And I've had very few sightings of him, certainly. And the reason why he comes to mind is that this is the area where he does hang around, or a area that he does hang around, not the only area. The big male leopard will have a large territory, possibly encompassing 4 or 5 females' territory within his. So they do cover large distances, or larger distances than females. So you typically won't see a dominant male as frequently as you may see a female that's resident in your area of operation, simply because the females tend to not move as far, making it slightly easier to see them, or see them on a frequent basis. No, don't run away. There's a vervet monkey here, folks, and he looks to be relaxed with us. No. Oh, come on. There's more. There are more. We're going to show you one. We will show you one. We'll try our best to. Because we don't get to see them very often, these vervet monkeys. And oh, hold on, Brian. Well, that little grey blur that you saw there was a vervet monkey, folks. Now, I'm just trying to establish if there's more members of this troop behind us, which I think there are. Unless these are just a few laggers at the back of the troop. Oh, nice, Brian. Who said only leopards are elusive, folks? These vervet monkeys are proving to be just as difficult to film. So what we're going to do is creep around a little bit. I think we will be able to get a better angle for you, but it is a bit of a gamble. Just going to try and find a little opening here and get us a little bit closer to them in the area where they appear to be feeding. Oh, I haven't chosen a very good place here, but it's... oh no. Our monkey luck has had a turn for the good. I've just seen one female with a looks to be a very small baby. Okay. Oh, Brian's done a great job and immediately found this mother with a tiny little baby. Look at how cute that is. The cheeks are all very full of something. What exactly they've been feeding on, I'm not exactly sure, but I am trying to have a look. Because there are some individuals that have carried whatever it was they were feeding on up into the tree. Oh, and everyone's having a turn at feeding. It looks like that youngster's suckling. The mum's eating, the kid's eating. You can see her cheeks, folks, they are full. So they've stockpiled whatever it was that they were feeding on in their cheeks, and now they're slowly enjoying it and processing all that food that they've stored up. Appears to be quite a small troop. They do vary greatly in size depending on the area and the individual troop, obviously. They only appear to be about 8 or 9 members here. Who knows, maybe this is only half a troop or a new troop that's establishing itself. This guy's found an interesting place to relax, interesting position. Well, we couldn't have chosen any better sentries or lookouts to spot a leopard or any predator for us. They're elevated and have incredibly good eyesight, so if anything does happen, we are in the right place. Oh. Brian's doing a good job here introducing you to all the family members of this troop. He's just working his way through the tree, and there's different shapes and sizes. There appear to be 2 very young babies, and then 2 which look to be a few months older. Those are the 2 mothers sitting there that you can see on screen. Sadly, both of their youngsters aren't easily visible now. The youngster on the left of the screen, though, does appear to be playing around. You can just see its little body clambering through the branches. There it is. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to climb a tree and be so relaxed up there? With a view, cool breeze. Well, they've all gone from presenting themselves perfectly to us to kind of disappearing into this tree, not offering us the best angles anymore. It looks like it could be the dominant male of the troop. Okay, Brian, where is he sitting in relation to... Oh, there goes the mother with the baby there. But they're sitting right next to each other now. They just moved out into shot for a moment and then scurried back to the other side of the tree. Oh, here we've got a cute little youngster that's looking to be fairly inquisitive. Now in this shot you can see the two mothers as well. It's fascinating how these tiny little babies hang on to their mothers when they're clambering through these trees and miraculously don't drop off or fall, because they must have really strong little hands to be able to hold on to their mothers as they jump from branch to branch. Good afternoon, Peter. Folks, Peter Pretorius has just sent through a message asking if I am having fun, and I certainly am, Peter. Peter's another Wild Earth presenter that was here just a few weeks ago. Him and Hayden Turner focused on the Big Cat Week, and myself and Mark continued thereafter. And Peter, I'm very happy to hear you watching, and we are having a lot of fun out here, the whole team, not just myself. So I hope you're having fun watching from Namibia. And I know monkeys are one of your favorite animals, so I'll spend a few extra minutes here for you, Peter. Okay, Peter would like to know my funniest monkey story or memory. A funny memory, and it happens fairly often with monkeys, is for me when they are young, kind of sub-adults, and they dangle on branches about 3 meters off the ground, 4 meters off the ground, so quite a height, and other members of the troop come down onto those same branches and start dangling off one another until eventually the whole chain collapses and they all go tumbling to the ground. So that probably is one of my funnier monkey memories, but it is a trick or a stunt that they perform fairly often. They all appear to be coming down the tree now, which is providing for... Look at those youngsters holding on. I mean, it's incredible. And Brian's doing a great job filming this. I mean, it's just hard to believe that she's got a tiny baby holding on to her stomach. Let's watch this one now as she jumps into the bush. I mean, boing! Awesome, we're getting a really good show here as to how acrobatic and nimble they are in the branches. So there's 3 of them with tiny babies, it appears. And that looks to be the last member of the troop, and they're off. Babies clinging on for dear life. Well, folks, I'm really happy we got to show you that. People have been asking numerous times if they're monkeys here and baboons. They are both. Sadly, I've personally only been able to show you the vervet monkey, but the baboons will pop up at some stage. I don't know where they've been hiding. I actually haven't seen one since I've been here, but they do occur here, and I'm sure we'll get to see some at some stage. But that was a great vervet monkey sighting. And to Peter, who's watching, thanks very much for your questions, and I hope all is well back home. You must be enjoying seeing your little boy again, and your daughter, and your wife. So I hope all is well there, and best regards from the team. Your water bottle, thank you, sir, is looking after us. So all is well. So this interesting clump of foam that Brian is focused in on there is actually a nest of a frog, and interestingly enough, the frog is called the foam nest frog, also known as a tree frog. They are arboreal frogs that spend the majority of their time in trees, and what would have happened here is the female would have frothed up a secretion with her legs to create this foam, and then the males come and lay their eggs, or sorry, fertilize her eggs in this foamy nest. There can often be lots of males involved in this procedure, but this ensures that she gets her eggs fertilized, and apparently it only takes about 4 to 5 days before the eggs hatch as tadpoles and then fall into the water. The problem in this situation is that all 3 foamy nests that we can see are actually not overhanging the water, and therefore the tadpoles are going to drop onto land, and a dry start for a trapped tadpole could end up proving fatal. They need to land ideally in water, but quite often the frogs build nests in areas that, yes, they may be covered with water temporarily, but in a few days' time dry up and then leave the poor tadpoles with a dry and dusty and short career on planet Earth. And I think this is what may happen here, unless we get lucky and rains come and fill this pool up. There are also tiny terrapins that frequent these ponds, but they're so difficult to see. They're very, very small, about the size of a matchbox. So difficult to see. I always wonder how they manage to get to these little puddles, these tiny terrapins. Terrapins are small turtle-like animals. I saw one swimming through here earlier, but it has disappeared, sadly. Okay. Okay, folks, well, the birds are certainly doing a lot of the work for us today, and these two grey go-away birds, I'm not sure exactly what they are doing, if they're courting one another or what's going on, but they are certainly behaving strangely. Well, isn't this interesting? Is this a bit of courtship we're witnessing here? Excuse me. Well, interestingly, due to this behavior, they're kind of oblivious to us, and that's why we are managing to show you this close-up footage, because we're not too far from them. And the individual at the back kind of keeps pecking gently on the one in front's back leg, and wouldn't it be something else if we saw them mating? I think we might. It's a long shot, but I think we may see the go-away birds making love. Let's give it a moment or two, because this is certainly some interesting go-away bird behavior we are witnessing. Oh, they're coming closer to us, which is good. And they... oh no. I was hoping I'd be able to freewheel a little bit. Okay, no, they should be potentially coming into us. There we go. Let's watch and see what happens here. So still picking at that back leg. What on earth it's hoping to achieve by doing that, I'm not too sure. But you can't help but think he's trying to convince her. I don't want to start the vehicle, folks. They're so close to us, so please just bear with us for a moment or two. It could simply just be a youngster begging its mother for food, I guess, but it's not the typical behavior that they use when begging for food. So who knows? And it is that season of the year when they should be making love. So, oh, what's going on here? So folks, like I say, we are so close to them that I can't risk moving. But thankfully, oh no, what is going on here? Okay, now we can move. I don't know what to say, folks. I'd like to get Mark's opinion as to what he thinks might be going on here. But I'll definitely let him know about this behavior a little bit later. Because it's a very gentle interaction that's going on. Nothing too forceful. But the one certainly is showing a lot more interest in the other. Well, folks, I really found that quite interesting, that behavior. Quite nice to see the delicate, seductive side of the go-away bird. Yeah, like I say, I'll have to chat with Mark, and if any of you have any ideas as to what they may have been trying to achieve with that little interaction, feel free to let us know. Folks, apology if the signal isn't very good. There are a few patches where the signal is strong, but sadly, you just have to deal with it. Okay. So now we are approaching Vuyatela, that general area, and I'm hoping that we'll see this we saw briefly after drive. I'm hoping that he has finished his and is now interested in something to and some more food. I'm very hungry this morning before he managed to make a meal of whatever it was, a scrub hare or a duck. We weren't sure, we just heard the animal bleating in distress. And a few glimpses of it being carried from the leopard's mouth into the thick riverbed. The clouds that were looking to be bearing rain have thankfully disappeared, and we've just got some beautiful thin clouds that Brian's busy showing you now. Nothing to worry about in terms of rain at the moment.
We're in for a glorious sunset.
Yes, we are in for a glorious sunset. Okay. Now, there's a few vultures here and an eagle. It looks like it could be a Wahlberg's eagle, but I will confirm that shortly. So, who knows what they've been feeding on here? I'm guessing that the bird we are looking at is currently feeding on something on the ground. But there could well be a kill in this area, or remains of a kill. Look at the fork-tailed drongo bomb diving. They really are incredible birds, the little fork-tailed drongos that attack and mob birds of prey. The vultures are just on our left-hand side, just to give you an idea of what is going on in terms of the whole scene. And these vultures are hooded vultures, so the smallest of the vultures that we get in this area, and they therefore specialize in feeding on the smallest last remains that are left on carcasses. So we'll just give it a minute or two and see what we can see from the vehicle here, and then go a little bit closer and establish what this Wahlberg's eagle is looking at on the ground. And then maybe drive around this area and see if we can't find any sign of a potential carcass. I wonder what it is that this bird's looking at in the grass. Because something certainly has got its attention there. Huh? A few little morsels it appeared to just feed on. Beautiful, beautiful bird. What I want to do is just drive around this area and see if we cannot find anything of interest that may have attracted these vultures to the area. The problem can be is that even though the vultures are perched in that tree, whatever food may be lying around nearby might not be directly below that tree, simply nearby it. And that's the closest dead tree to the carcass, and they like landing in dead trees, vultures and other birds of prey, because their wingspans are so large. And therefore landing is made easier on big open trees like dead trees, especially the knobthorn tree. That's a lesser spotted eagle, a migratory raptor, so a lot of birds of prey here, folks. Now what do they know about that we don't? certainly is a beautiful place to be investigating for any potential action. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get through a gap here, but let's see what happens. Yeah, this is doable. Well, sadly it is so thick in here. We could have driven meters past an animal and not seen it. But we did have a look. It could have just been something small that died close to the road that attracted those animals, the vultures and the other birds of prey, and they've then already fed on it. Or there could be something lurking in there. And as far as we can see, there doesn't appear to be anything left here for us to look at. All right. One last scan as we go past again. Now, with a little bit of luck, the leopard that was seen this morning is not far from where we are now. So we're just gonna drive along a sneaky little track that takes us into an area where he might be lying up. But before we go there, we will spend some time with this herd of impala. It's incredible to see how quick their reactions are. Beautiful, beautiful lights on them. And as you can see, these youngsters are only a few weeks, possibly some of them coming up on a month of age, already consuming vegetation. They will be still on milk, certainly, but they'll start combining both milk and solids from a young age. Quite interesting to hear the kind of nasal bleat that the mothers occasionally let off, obviously to communicate with one another and the youngsters. Yeah. To see those reactions, as soon as one gets a fright, it ripples through the herd at an incredible speed. Beautiful. Well, we'll leave them to it and poke our nose down into this little area that Peter actually showed me. Peter was the first person to show me this little path early on in my time here at Djuma on I think it was my first or second day. He thought he would come down and show me this kind of little secret pathway that can often produce the goods when it comes to leopards. So if we do find one here, we'll have to take our hats off to Peter for showing me the secret little spots. I'm not sure how far down this riverbed we can go. Let's have a look-see. Basically, in relation to where we are now, I'm guessing the leopard was about 200 or 300 yards further downstream of us where we saw it heading into the riverbed from the right-hand side, which is very thick. Now we've approached from the left in order to be able to get into the riverbed, but it was heading down towards here, and we could, with a bit of luck, find him lying up in the sand here, nice and cool. What a beautiful shady place it is down here in the riverbed. There's a nice little pond where you could come and drink. If he is nearby, but the one catch with riverbeds, and maybe that's why leopards love them, is that there are just so many hiding places for them, and often impenetrable areas that you simply cannot get to. Hi folks, welcome back. I didn't realize we had lost signal until now, so I'm not sure how long you've been gone for, but apologies for that. It is the risk we take coming into riverbeds, but a necessary risk, because if the leopard was lying here, at least we would know and then be able to make a plan B accordingly. Okay. Well, we've had no luck in this riverbed, folks, but always beautiful to drive down them. And it was as close as could possibly get to where this leopard was heading earlier when we saw it later this morning after the morning drive. Okay. One more hour, folks. Let's hope for something to pop up at some stage. The birds have been wonderful this afternoon, but the mammals have been less proactive. Okay. Well, welcome to WildEarthTV Dam. And as you can see, there's some Cape buffalo. All looking extremely content. Only one individual now that we can see is in the water. The rest have probably already drunk or had enough time wallowing today. They do spend a fair amount of hours wallowing, especially in the summer months during the heat of the day, which is exactly what I would be doing as well if I was in their situation. This herd of impala that we saw earlier appears to be heading down to the water's edge, just behind the buffalo, so with a bit of luck we will get to see them drinking. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try and get into position before they start on the other side of the river so that we can get the best possible angle. So let's see if this works out in our favor. Don't want to go too close. Well, there's a strong chance they won't drink, folks, but I'm hoping they're going to. Oh, the Egyptian geese. And the goslings are also here. I'm trying to count the goslings, but it's not easy. But it looks like there are still 7. So the parents are doing a great job, both the impalas and the Egyptian geese, raising their young from the season. Yeah. Yeah, there are still 7 of the little geese. Now, interestingly enough, there's some youngsters coming down first, which got a little bit nervous, which is a good sign. Because waterholes are dangerous places for antelope as they're drinking. Predators could sneak up on them from behind or occasionally from also in the water. The old crocodile, but thankfully we don't have any crocodiles that we know of in this waterhole, so they don't have to worry about the crocodiles here, but they will be trained to be alert for crocodiles in patches of water like this. All it takes is one individual to drink and break the ice, so to speak, and the rest would then all come flooding down. It's interesting, we've got quite a few youngsters also now on this side of the dam where we are parked, coming down to drink, and they're just in front of us over here. So oh, I wonder if they're not calling youngsters that they've lost. It appears like some of the impala across the way weren't. No, they were just interested in drinking, and one individual has started to drink. At this time of the year there is a lot of water around, so it's less frantic than what it would be like as the first one started drinking in the winter periods, where the rest would then all join force.
think that's mom trying to collect the little ones right on the end there.
It could be. There's 3 youngsters, and that adult that Brian's just panned away from, and then there's these 3 youngsters that are looking across the dam. So we're not sure if they've lost their mother, or their mother's lost them, or what's going on, because there are certainly some individuals that are appearing interested. Well, they're both appearing interested in one another. No, it's hard to believe, but obviously each individual will know exactly who its mother is and their vocalization, so they could well be communicating with one another. And it almost looks like these youngsters want to run across the water. They don't know to go around, and that's very interesting. There are also mothers on the side of the waterhole, but it's just these 3 youngsters that have somehow been lured down to investigate this other herd, and we're just trying to establish why exactly they've chosen to do this. A lot of general game in this area. There's waterbuck, inyala, impala just in this shot. And the waterbuck, I think, should lead you into a few zebra. We are directly in front of the lodge here at Djuma, so this is the view or the area that the guests look onto when they are in the lodge. Not a bad place to be on holiday, that is for sure. That funny gurgling noise you can hear is some buffalo. They're starting to show signs of a little bit more action and activity. And whatever was happening with the impala and these 3 youngsters appears to have diffused, and there is no longer too much interest from the impala lambs across the water to the adults that we thought potentially had lost one another. Right. The buffaloes are all getting a little bit worked up here. The men are just going to turn the vehicle, so Brian's got a slightly easier job of showing you what's going on here. But there's 2 males that are sparring one another. Another 2 are mounting, well, one's mounting another one, so a little bit of sexual frustration out here at the WildEarthTV Dam. All very playful, it appears, at this stage. Nothing. I'm not expecting a colossal buffalo fight to break out in front of us. They're just kind of gearing up for the evening ahead of them. Now, it has happened, it doesn't happen often, but it has happened that buffalo fighting and occasionally kudu lock horns and therefore become stuck together by the head or the horns, resulting in their inevitable death. And wouldn't that be a nice surprise as a lion or a leopard or a hyena or any predator coming across? Two big buffalo bulls that have got stuck together, and you can simply feed on them because it's not an easy job taking these down. They sure do know how to look after themselves. Okay. What a beautiful evening, folks. I think it might be worth us stopping here for a minute or two. A minute or two of silence just to enjoy this beautiful scene that Brian is showing us perfectly. And in these few minutes that we wait here and enjoy the scenery, the leopard that we're looking for is going to leave its hiding place, come out onto the road, and be walking towards us when we find it in about 10 minutes. That's my prediction. So it's all part of a plan. Brian from Toronto has just asked a question. Good evening, Brian, and welcome on board. Brian asked if there are any cheetahs in this area of the reserve, and there are, but they get seen very seldom, and there are very few in this area. It's too thick a habitat for cheetah, ideally, and the concentration of lion and leopard in this area do make it difficult for cheetah to thrive, because cheetah and lion and leopard are dominant over cheetah. I'm hoping to see cheetah once or twice in the next month or so that we're going to be here. Anything more than that, I would be very surprised. So there is a chance we would see one, but not a good one now I'm hoping Brian might be able to show some European bee eaters, which are, they were flying together, but no, they're a bit far now. They were flying through the frame that we're currently looking at, but they're small birds, so we couldn't pick them up. They're far away, but the European bee eaters are the birds I was talking about earlier that are back in full force, and they've really just come back in the last 3 days that I've been away. I've noticed a drastic increase in their numbers. Okay, I just heard an alarm call from an impala. The impala that we were watching drink earlier. And I'm just going to watch them from here rather than moving. What could it be that they've seen? It's not a very intent alarm call, but it's an alarm call nonetheless. Now, it could simply be one herd member getting a fright irrationally and letting out a call, and then another getting a bit of a fright thereafter. What could it be? I am going to, sorry Brian, I am going to just head back a little bit and see if we can't see anything. Noticed which direction the impala ran away to, which means we can kind of assume that whatever it was that did get their attention was in the opposite direction. I'm just going to use my binoculars to have a quick scan and see if we can't see anything slinking about that other side of the river. They only let off one or two alarm calls. Which tends to make me think that it was a bit of a false alarm or nothing too serious. But certainly worth double checking. Okay, no luck here. Okay folks, so just to warn you in advance, this is the road that the leopard is going to be walking down when we find it. This is my plan. The leopard probably doesn't know anything about it, so it's not guaranteed, but it's just a feeling that I have. Brian doesn't look convinced, but Brian's the one that spotted it this morning, so without Brian we wouldn't even know about it. So we do have a lucky charm on board in the way of Brian. Good spot here?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, look at that, folks. Well done, Brian. It looked like it could have been another lesser spotted eagle. Silhouetted with a beautiful sunset in the background. So folks, VM's in control this afternoon, and for those of you who don't know VM is one of the other cameramen. So Brian and VM are two cameramen, as well as Jason as a third cameraman, and VM just credited Brian there with his filming skills. So nice to have the cameraman taking turns, and all of us will actually be taking turns doing the different roles out here, either directing or being the cameraman or presenting. So nice to chop and change where we can and experience the different roles. Sadly, the tripod can only bend back so far, folks. So Brian exhausted its capabilities there before the bird flew out of shot. That looked to be a yellow-billed kite, another migratory bird. We've got a question and Cassidy coming. The decline in honeybees has resulted in a decline in bee eaters. I sadly I haven't noticed a difference, but I think intense research would be required to be able to accurately establish whether there is a noted difference. There could well be, but I think something else that needs to be remembered here is that the name can be misleading. Just like a kingfisher, you get kingfishers that only eat insects, and bee eaters that don't necessarily only eat bees, they eat any flying insects or various flying insects. So even if the bees population or bees became extinct, as an extreme example, I think bee eaters would still be able to exist relatively well, because they do feed on a variety of other food sources. But it is a good question, and it is something that all of us need to be aware of, is the decline in bees and bee populations throughout the world. It doesn't matter where you are. And the knock-on effect of that is that we are losing a lot of opportunities for pollination, and bees being great pollinators and critical in the pollination process. Without them, it is affecting biodiversity and plant life, and the knock-on effect onto animal life is notable. So it is a concern for all of us, the decline in bee populations. Well, as I did say, the leopard that was supposed to be walking down this road did not necessarily know that that was the plan. It was just my plan, and it has failed. We saw it just behind us on the right hand side of the vehicle this morning when we were driving back towards camp, when Mark and VM kindly came to rescue myself and Bran. We had been stuck at the Harrier Hawk nest for 2.5 hours or so, which was a good place to be stuck. Brian and I both said we couldn't have been luckier with regards to where we got stuck, but sadly the African Harrier Hawks that we were hoping to come and investigate their nest and carry on building their nest, they didn't tolerate our presence. They intended to stay away from the nest, but it was some good time invested in them, and hopefully going forward we will find an opportunity to show those African Harrier Hawks on their nest. We will just have to slowly but slowly get them used to the vehicle. I think I was parked a little bit too close to the nest this morning, and when I wanted to reverse and move back a bit further, sadly the vehicle wouldn't start, so we couldn't go back on our initial plan. Okay, well, this is a bit of a sneaky little track we found here that does lead us into, again, a similar area to where we saw this leopard heading, with a small kill this morning, either rabbits or a duiker, we're not too sure. So hopefully he is still in the area. Few little areas that I would like to check here. The go-away birds certainly are getting worked up. I can see them just through this gap here, and all we can hope is that they are shouting at the leopard that we are looking for. So, hold thumbs, folks. It's a good sign. We're arriving into an area where we think there could be a leopard. And when you hear go-away birds calling as insistently as they are now, you cannot help but think that they are shouting at the same animal that we are looking for. I think it could be a snake, folks. There's a lot more birds than just the go-away birds here. There's also a lot of virtual starlings. It could be a snake or a mongoose. Either way, it's something interesting. It's just a matter of us trying to spot it, especially if it is a small animal like a snake or a mongoose. Okay, you can see all these birds, folks. They are not all in this tree by chance. There's something here. Certainly something here, and I thought I saw it, but it was the tail of a go-away bird. There's certainly something of danger in this tree. I'm guessing it's a snake. But whatever it is, they are making its presence known to everyone. I'm just trying my best to scan through the tree with my binoculars. But spotting a snake in a tree like this would be very difficult. Great opportunity to see these beautiful Burchell starlings though. They're the biggest starlings that we get here. And they are seriously putting on a show for us. What on earth can they see?
Is it not on the back of the tree?
It's a valid point. Brian thinks it could be on the back end of this tree that's just in front of them, and it could well be, but it's a difficult tree for anything to slither up and be hidden on that side. Where are you and what are you? Okay, well, at least that confirms to us that they weren't alarm calling at the leopard. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there was certainly something else here. It could have been a mongoose or a smaller predator that was responsible for their reaction or behavior. It was these same birds, Burchell starlings, that led myself and Jason, I think, was filming to a black mamba, a highly venomous snake. But quite often when responding to these calls, sadly, you simply just don't get to see what it is they were shouting at. Whatever it is, be it a snake or a mongoose or a leopard, will tend to get out of the area as quick as possible, therefore attract less attention to it. Okay, well, I think this is the end of the road for us. Before this knobthorn tree fell down behind us, we would have been able to get there, which is a pity that it's now cracked the pathway. I think now what would be a nice option for us is to head up to quarantine clearings. It's elevated and there's some beautiful colors coming from the sunset. So a combination of sunsets and hopefully some animals running around those clearings would be a great way to end the evening. And it is sadly coming to close shortly. 15 minutes or so. There's a beautiful big kudu bull here. That is certainly going to be worth stopping and enjoying. Beautiful, beautiful big male. Now this kudu is the largest antelope in our area of operation, and certainly one of the most spectacular. He's tilted his ears so that kind of one's listening to any potential animals approaching from behind, which there is, and it'll come into frame shortly. Well, that's what he was listening to. Another 2 or 3 big kudu bulls. And they are typically browsers, so in wooded areas with trees and lots of leaves. But now they're obviously in transit between wooded areas, and this allows us for a great viewing opportunity out in the open. This male that we can see now closest to us on the left of the screen has got an exceptionally wide rack of horns there. He's displaying it very well. So interesting to see how they can have slight differences between individuals in the way their horns grow, and his are, I would like to say, slightly abnormally wide at the tip points. When you see the others facing us head on, they will, there we go, that's kind of a little bit more regular, the individual at the back. But we can see it trotting towards us now. Beautiful, beautiful antelope. We should be able to get them crossing the road here. Quite a lot younger, this male in front. You can see he doesn't have nearly as many spirals as the bigger individuals that are following behind. Beautiful. Oh. These clearings really do produce some incredible sightings for us. One that comes to the top of my memory was my first drive with Wild Earth a few weeks back, and I got to see my first wildebeest giving birth, or first time I've actually seen any wild animal give birth. So that is certainly probably my highlight out of quarantine clearings. But hope for many more over the next month or so that we are going to be here. An incredible elephant sighting with a large herd of elephants streaming past either side of the vehicle. I got excited by a stump, a wooden stump that looked like it could be a hyena or something along those lines walking towards us. Oh, well, this is good news. Let me get out and show you guys. Now, these are the yellow and ripe fruits of the marula tree, which is directly above us. And these are some of the first fruits that I've seen falling down. They do appear to have had some kind of an insect that has been either feeding on them or laying eggs inside these marulas, and this could have been a reason why they are the first ones to drop, and they aren't good ones to eat because we can see they have been fed on already by something. Something has caused this growth, and I think it is potentially a small insect that lays their egg inside these fruits. But what that means is that the fruits are starting to drop, and elephants will now start to move from tree to tree to tree, marula tree specifically to marula tree, in order to feed on these fruits, which is good entertainment for us. And I'm looking also forward to being able to eat some of these fruits myself. They're delicious, high in vitamin C. You can make beer out of them, which, depending on how you brew it, can be different strengths. So you can brew a beer. I'm going to try and make a marmalade this season as well. But eventually I've been able to show you some of the yellow marula fruits and what they look like when they are ripe. And a good sign for us, in the next few weeks we'll be snacking on marulas and sipping on marula beer, potentially. Now folks, for those of you who do follow a little bit more closely, I haven't forgotten about the plan to find a chameleon at night and then go and sit with it in the morning and see it operational during the day, because at night they are sadly fast asleep. And typically when you find them during the day, they are usually crossing a road or not in a situation where they're necessarily comfortable and going on with their daily business unaltered. So if we find one the night before and can go and sit with it the following day, we will have some great entertainment, chameleon entertainment. It will happen at some stage. We just sadly haven't had any luck with finding them in these last few minutes when it does get a little bit darker. It shouldn't be long now either until we start seeing tiny little baby chameleons. They can sometimes be on a blade of grass as thin as, no, that's not a good way of showing you, but very thin blades of grass, and they are minute. So hopefully some of them should start hatching soon. It is that time of the year. Well folks, there are just a few minutes left, so I'm going to start winding down, and thanks so much for joining. As always, it's lovely to have you guys on board with us day in and day out. So a big thank you from our side, and apologies that Djuma is playing up at the moment. We are doing what we can to get it fixed, but it's proving difficult out here. But apologies for that, and that does it. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a wonderful day, and thanks for all the questions, especially the birders who enjoyed this afternoon's drive. And that's how it goes, folks. For those of you that are new, there's a limit to how many mammals we can see in terms of sheer luck, and there's a mammal that we don't see very often though. Oh, there it goes. One last little glimpse of a scrub here. I'll try and creep forward. There we go. So this little scrub here has just come out of hiding. They hide in small thickets, grassy thickets or thick bushes, and come out in the evening to feed. Sadly, we think that is what the leopard managed to catch this morning, one of these guys. Very small meal for a leopard, but a meal nonetheless. But yeah, folks, as I was saying before the scrub here popped up, is there's a limit to how much luck we can have, and it does ebb and flow in terms of what we get lucky to see. Today we got lucky to see a lot of different birds and interesting bird behavior. That those go-away birds were really interesting for me to see how they were interacting with one another. So you've just got to enjoy all the little different aspects and little pieces of beauty that get displayed out here for us. And with a bit of luck, that leopard that Mark managed to find this morning, and Brian managed to find after it had been lost, hopefully that'll be out and about and in areas where it is easier for us to follow and search for them. But thank you very much for all the questions, folks. It really does make our life easier and more enjoyable the more we do get to interact with you guys. And folks, it's important for us to bid Brian a fond farewell. He is leaving, not forever thankfully, just for a few days to go and take some time off and have a break. So Brian, thanks very much for all your work, buddy, and enjoy your break. So there's Brian's trademark thumb. So yeah, Brian, have a good trip, and to all of you, thanks so much folks. Have a good evening or day, and we'll see you on the morning safari.